I think that every hunter thinks about, dreams about, envisions killing an absolute giant buck. I mean, I think that's just part of hunting. It's the chase, it's the excitement, it's the, no matter how much maybe you don't want to admit it, it's that little bit of selfish pride inside each and every one of us hunters that wants to be the guy who killed the biggest buck between all your friends that season. And I've always said that the size of a deer and the inches of antlers doesn't determine my happiness. It doesn't define success for me. But on the other hand, I can't really speak from personal experience. I've never shot an absolute giant buck, so I don't really know what it feels like. But this year was going to be a year that I was going to try to change that. 2014 rolled around, and as always, we did a whole bunch of work in the off season, our food plots, moving trail cameras, just doing everything within our means to put ourselves in a position that fall to be as successful as possible. Fast forward to 2 days left in the Iowa season in 2014. I had a muzzleloader tag in my pocket, and it was absolutely getting down to the wire. We needed to kill bad for Hallowed Ground Outdoors to make enough episodes for the year's show, and we were sitting in a hay bale blind. The conditions were perfect. In 2015 rolled around, and as always, we went to work. We actually did some more controlled burning, and as a result of that, we ended up picking up that buck's sheds. You know, we knew that the jump from 3 to 4 years was going to affect his antler growth, and we anticipated him being a nice buck, but we didn't really realize how nice he'd be until he started showing up on trail camera later that summer. You know, at that time we named him the Split G2 buck because we're incredibly creative, and he was showing up on camera almost religiously every single night, same time, just like clockwork, all the way up to September 28th. And season rolled around on October 1st, and he was completely nocturnal. When the rut rolled around, you know, he went from nocturnal to completely non-existent. He disappeared off the map. And as the rut started to wind down, obviously that was incredibly disheartening. I didn't know if he ran off, got shot. I just had absolutely no idea. And one day towards the end of November, we had a bunch of production work to do. So I wanted to head obviously to a place in the woods that was not going to mess up our hunting for that evening. And we get in the woods, and of course he's in there with a doe, and we end up bumping them out of their beds. It was the last place that I would have expected to see him, and maybe that's why I shouldn't have been so shocked that he was sitting there. But regardless, kind of had a little bit of a missing piece in the puzzle of where he might spend some of his time during the rut, and we were just going to try to use that information to put ourselves in a position to kill him. Shortly after the rut ended, he started showing up on cameras again, but everything was at night, and we never saw him on the hoof the remainder of the 2015 season. In 2016, we built a house out on the farm, and we moved on the edge of the property about 100 yards from where we had kicked the G2 buck up the previous fall. One of the things that I really wanted to do was I wanted to put a food plot in below the house. Don't breathe that in, buddy. I wanted to put the food plot in for a couple different reasons. I wanted to have a place where we could play and watch deer. I wanted to have a place where the kids could sneak out and hunt with me. And in the back of my mind, I thought that a food plot in the right spot could maybe be the ticket to harvesting that buck. The summer rolled on, trail cameras went out, and the pictures started to come in. And just on basically the same exact schedule, we started to get pictures of the split G2 buck again. He absolutely exploded. His split G2 on one side became a split G2 on both sides. He had a kicker off of one of his brow tines. He had crab claws, absolutely everything that you would want in a whitetail. The split G2 had it. And obviously, #1 hit list buck for me that year, for me possibly of all time. And I could just not wait for October to roll around. It was like September 28th, or almost to the day of the year prior, where he just completely went nocturnal. Obviously, we hunted hard, we hunted smart all throughout the early season, but never saw him on the hoof, and trail cameras were the same exact thing. He was only showing up at night. And I was just hoping to not have a repeat of the 2015 season. It is November 12th, and we are sitting in the muddy bull blind right below the house this morning. We stalked the G2 buck, first time I've seen him since, I guess, 2014, but he's been the #1 hit list buck for 2 years now. Here, this drops off below the food plot, and the gut feeling is he's still down there with her. If that's the case, hopefully, fingers crossed, Lord willing, she brings him back out here tonight. All of a sudden I heard crashing in the woods, and we had all the windows shut to try to contain our scent, and I could still hear branches breaking and grunting, and just instinctively my first thought was, it's him. I whipped the window open, grabbed the bow, Zach turned the camera on, and in a flash he was standing in the food plot.
Man.
Under him, back, under. Shoot. Shoot, 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 shoot. Shoot. I just missed him, didn't I? Back to the guy's back leg. That was way past 40. I'm sure it was uncomfortable in the blind because no one knew what to say. I was embarrassed. I mean, I had my father-in-law there. I just missed a great opportunity at a deer of a lifetime. And I was speechless. I didn't want to talk. I didn't have anything to say. And time just honestly kind of passed in silence. You know, I didn't want to sit any longer. I knew that he wasn't going to be back. And eventually I just told my father-in-law and Zach to head back up to the house, and I was going to go down and look at the arrow. I walked across the food plot, and I could see the arrow laying on top of the grass. When I picked the arrow up, it was absolutely covered in bright pink blood, and it was oxygenated. There were bubbles all over it, and I didn't want to get my hopes up, but I knew that we had to take a closer look at the footage. We pulled the footage into the computer and we watched it over and over and over again, and it looked like as the buck dropped and his knee came forward, it looked like the arrow basically went through right at his knee joint. And if you look at the circulatory system of a white-tailed deer, that is right where the femoral artery runs. I was looking online, looking on different forums, calling buddies who I value their opinion and expertise in the whitetail community. I just wanted to make sure that my next step was the right step, and if there was any chance in recovering this buck, that we were gonna have the best opportunity to do so. Ready?
As ready as I want to be.
Right there, buddy. He didn't go 50 yards.
Here he is. G thing. We didn't know what to call him. I mean, he's These split G2s he didn't develop until one was last year and then two this year. And this is really a story about management. Last year had hundreds of trail camera pictures of him. He was our #1 hit list buck last year, and we set stuff up this year to kill this buck. We knew that this was his core area. He's a 5-year-old deer, and yeah, just a testament to if you let deer go and let them grow and put in the work, they turn into something like this. Just an absolutely beautiful animal and just a blessing. Pretty humbled and pretty surreal to be holding this guy. I never thought it would happen, so oh, he's a beast. Okay, here. Smell these hands. Through this whole entire process, I've learned a lot. I've improved and matured as a hunter. I've also learned that as much as I work and try to control things, I hope that I continue to stay lucky. But most importantly, what I learned is that for me now, I can say from personal experience that it's not about the size of the deer or the inches of antlers that define success and why I enjoy being in the outdoors and whitetail hunting. For me, the most enjoyable part of this whole story was the journey. It was the process. It was the excitement. Next year there's going to be a new deer. He may not be 180 some odd inches. He may only be 140, but that doesn't matter. My goal is just to make sure that I am being faithful with the opportunities that God has given me and being a good steward of the land that He has given me the great opportunity to hunt. And I know that if I do that, the rest will just take care of itself.